Hi everyone! Welcome to the second episode of my knitting podcast. How thrilling. We're here, we're together. I meant to film this like low-key a couple weeks ago, but alas, things got away from me, time got away from me. It was the end of the semester. I had exams, etc. But as of now, I'm finished with my first semester of my second year of med school. One step closer to being a doctor. How thrilling. So yeah, I have a couple weeks off. I'm super excited to do tons of knitting, tons of reading, clean my house, cook some home cooked meals because I've been eating a lot of takeout and probably not as many vegetables as I need, and just all of that good stuff. So very exciting. I have two quick disclaimers before we start. Number one, it's gonna get darker throughout this video, and I apologize for that. It is almost 5 p.m. I started filming this, and then I realized that I had filmed almost 15 minutes with my phone camera like fully zoomed out, and it looked crazy. So I restarted, and I had already started filming kind of late, so you know, the sun is gonna start to set at some point. It's gonna get darker in here. I'm really sorry. It's mid-December. The sun will just go down early because of the nature of the tilt of the earth on its axis. It is what it is. But I have my lamp on, so hopefully I can provide some light that way. It's a pretty bright lamp. So I think combined, the kind of daylight we have left and that lamp will hopefully give enough lighting. And let me just double check to make sure I haven't accidentally zoomed in again, because it's actually way too easy to do on an Apple Watch. And I'm just gonna take this off so that I don't accidentally like bump it and zoom in. Okay, I hope everyone's been well. I've been great. Like I said, I finished the semester and I went to my friend's wedding yesterday. It was super fun. I have a bit of a headache now, so I have my Gatorade. And also because I never drink enough water in the winter. I just don't, because like I'm not sweating, and so I think, I don't know, something in my brain just like doesn't drive me to drink water the same way it does when it's like summer and it's hot and I'm sweating. But the air is so dry that it just sucks all of the air out of my body, all of the water out of my body. Sorry. Also, I forgot, I had a second disclaimer I was gonna make. I was watching back my first podcast and I realized there's kind of a lot of background noise, which I don't know if it's super noticeable to other people, but it's noticeable to me. Unfortunately, I just live in kind of a noisy neighborhood. They're doing construction literally in the street, like right in front of my house. And I swear to God, they're here like 12 hours a day or something like that. So I don't know if there's actually a time of day where I could film other than like late at night where they're not here. And then obviously I don't have any light. So it's kind of a trade-off. I hope it doesn't distract anyone or bother anyone too much. And also, like, I live in a building with other people, you know, so they make noise, unfortunately, sometimes. And also my dryer is running right now, which is really poor planning on my part. I'm just gonna go and stop it just to be safe, because I want to minimize whatever I can. So I'll be right back. All right, dryer has been paused. I will finish drying my clothes after I film this, just to make sure that there's not anything going on in the background. At least there's as little going on in the background as I can manage. And now that I have that out of the way, I can finally tell you about what I'm wearing. This is my Selene cardigan by Marika Knit. I don't know if it's supposed to be pronounced Selene or Soline. I like Selene because it sounds kind of like French and chic, but whatever. Anyway, this is just a little drop shoulder cardigan with these bows at the front. Super cute, fun project. Obviously cardigans. It's a lot of knitting flat, which is not my fave. But I managed. And yeah, I had started this in, I think March, maybe February or March. And then I put it down for a while as the weather got warmer, and then I just felt like finishing it in like late August. So that's when I finished it. So it wasn't cold enough to wear for a little bit, but now that it is cold enough to wear, and in fact, it maybe is even too cold to wear something that's open in the front like this, because it's about 16 degrees Fahrenheit today. But I've just been wearing this constantly throughout the fall. It's such a cute little fall piece, I think, especially in this color. It's a really beautiful fall color. This is K&C Cloud Paca in the color Persian Red, although it doesn't, it's like a reddish purple. I would say it's probably closer to purple than to red, but whatever. I didn't name the color. And this is a Joann's brand, so RIP. But it's a blown yarn, so it's really similar to like Drops Air, or I think Sanisgarn has a blown yarn as well that I've never used, but if you're looking for something like that, I think it is a good choice for this project. It has a little bit less structure than spun yarns do because it's so light and fluffy. So depending on the look you want, that might not be your vibe, but I really like it for this. I think it makes it just super cozy, and it's very lightweight, right? Because it's blown. The construction of this is pretty standard. You cast on at one shoulder for the back, knit down a little, cast on for the other shoulder, knit down, join them together, knit down until I think under the armpit, and then you do the same on the front. If you've knit a cardigan, like a drop shoulder cardigan, it's pretty much the same, and then you do the sleeves, and then you do the button band, which is actually not a button band because it doesn't have any buttons, but you know, it's still a button band, just without buttons or buttonholes. And then you knit these little I-cord ties for the front. So yeah, pretty straightforward. I don't remember finding this pattern to be very difficult. And my knitting skills have improved a lot between when I started this in the spring and when I finished it in August. So when I picked it back up, I was like, oh, this is super straightforward. I think when I started, there was like a little bit of like, it wasn't difficult. I just had to really think about some things more so than like I would now. And also my tension was not in a good place. With this yarn especially, I find that I have a lot of trouble with rowing out. My pearls end up a lot looser, and I think it's just this yarn, because it's not spun, it's sticky. So when you are knitting, it doesn't like there are some really like bouncy wools that kind of even themselves out as you knit almost, and hide any inconsistencies with your tension really well. That does not happen with this because it is not bouncy and springy. It is fluffy and also sticky. So your stitches don't just naturally even themselves out. So I had to put a lot of work into trying to get my gauge as consistent between right side and wrong side rows as I could. And I think I ended up doing a pretty good job by the end. It's pretty even, and obviously with blocking also. But at the back where I started, there's some definite inconsistencies, and luckily, because of the fluffiness and also the dark color of this yarn, they're pretty hard to see. Also because of where they're located, like no one's gonna be looking at that necessarily, and my hair usually covers it anyway. But it is something that just reminds me kind of where my skill was when I started this. And I think that's really cool actually to see kind of visually how my abilities changed over the course of knitting this one garment, because it was kind of a stretched out process. So yeah, like I said, I wear it all the time, and I'm happy to have it in my wardrobe. I think it's a really cute little piece, and this kind of thing with the little ties, the bows, right up my alley, exactly my style. So I love it, and yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Okay, on to the finished objects. My first finished object, I actually do not have to show you because it was a gift, and I was trying to film this knitting podcast before I gave the gift, but that did not end up being possible, so here we are. But I will insert a photo. Anyway, my first finished object that I'm talking about today is the sailor slippers, which I'm sure if you interact with any knitting content anywhere on the internet, you have probably seen these. And you've probably seen them many times because everyone is making these. And for good reason. They are so cute, and they are a really perfect gift knit because they're super fast, they're bulky weight yarn. The recommended yarn is Drop Snow, which is very affordable, so you can knit up a ton of these as gifts without, breaking the bank, which I think is nice. Obviously, when it comes to gift giving, like, in theory, it's like nice. It would be nice to like splurge on a special yarn for a gift knit. But in my mind, the gift is more about like the labor and the thought that you put into it. And I think it can be almost like an extra burden to give someone, and this depends on the person, but to give someone something that's made with a very nice yarn can almost become like an extra task for them because it will require like special care and thought. But yeah, my friend Alex, I ended up drawing her in our Secret Santa. My med school friend group had a Secret Santa, and I was her Secret Santa, right? Because Santa's the one who gives the gift. Okay, yes. So I was her Secret Santa, and on her wish list, she said that she wanted a pair of slippers. And at that time, I already had yarn in the mail for sailor slippers. It was already on its way to me from Linda Hobby. So I was like, how perfect, because I had thought that anyway. I was like, oh, whoever I draw for Secret Santa, like maybe I'll make them a pair of slippers. And then for her to specifically say that, I was like, this is perfect. And I had a suspicion that she would want some cozy slippers because she recently moved and her new place is in like a converted industrial building, and the floors are cement. So I was like, probably gets pretty cold, especially like in the mornings. The floors are probably pretty cold. So if she doesn't have a good pair of slippers, I bet she wants one. So I was correct. And she did ask for slippers, so I made her a pair in blue and green stripes, and then for the sole and the I-cord, I did a dark brown. And I thought they turned out super cute. Luckily, we're the same shoe size, so when it came to the felting, it was really easy to felt them down to the right size. If you want details about what exactly I did for felting, I did put that information on the Ravelry, my Ravelry project page. I have a top-loading washing machine, so it does have an agitator, which is really good for felting, actually, because it's a little bit harsher than like a more modern front-loading washer. I think those a lot of times just don't create enough friction to felt things efficiently. So it might be worth, if you're gonna make a pair of these, looking around and seeing if any of your friends or family have a top-loading washer with an agitator, because I think that is probably the most efficient way to felt. But yeah, like I said, I included those details on the Ravelry project page if you guys have a washer that's similar to mine. I rent, so I don't know the exact model, but it's just like a GE top loader. And it's super loud, so if that helps you narrow it down. Anyway, so yeah, super glad I made these. They turned out super cute. I knit them up quick. It took, I would say, a total of 8 hours to knit the pair, and that's generous. I think I could have been faster, especially now that I kind of know the pattern. I think when I make another pair, it'll be faster. But yeah, about 8 hours to knit. I did it over the course of 2 kind of intense nights of knitting, one of which was the night before an exam. So I definitely stayed up a little too late for the night before an exam, but it was fine. And then I finished them. I like got home from the exam and immediately started knitting on them again. And then I felted them up that same night. And then I dried them on one of my heating vents. I don't know if that's like safe, but nothing happened. The house didn't catch on fire. So, you know, the vent wasn't fully covered, and I didn't turn it on too hot. So this is not advice. I'm just sharing what I did. And if you burn your house down, I'm not liable for that, okay? Just use your own judgment and common sense. But yeah, they did actually, they dried pretty quickly on the heating vent, I think in like less than a day. So that was nice. And my washing machine also spun out a lot of the water from them. So they weren't super like sopping wet when they finished in the machine. And yeah, I think I'm gonna make a few more pairs. I'm definitely gonna make a pair for myself. I think I'm gonna make a pair for my dad because his feet are always cold, and I don't think he owns a pair of slippers, which is crazy because he's always complaining about how cold his feet are. So I'm gonna make a pair for him. And then, yeah, just go from there. Whoever wants one, because I have a lot of yarn. I have a box of yarn still, which I will show you later when I talk about my acquisitions. So anyway, that's my first finished object. I'm not going in chronological order. No, I don't think so. I just thought I'd talk about that first, so I don't forget about them since I don't have them here with me. So my next finished object is another cardigan knit with KNC Cloudpaca. Because when Joann was going out of business, I bought 2 sweater quantities of Cloudpaca, and both of them I just ended up being like, I should make a cardigan with this. So this is the step-by-step cardigan by Handmade by Florence. It is the essentially cardigan equivalent of her step-by-step sweater. It's just a basic raglan, a 2-stitch raglan, which I really like. I think it looks very good. Then with a double knit button band, and yeah, there really is not all that much to say about this pattern. I finished this like quite a few weeks ago, but the buttons were in my Linda Hobby order with the drop snow, which took quite a long time to come because obviously everyone's making sailor slippers, everyone's buying drop snow. Linda Hobby, they seem very overwhelmed at the moment. I think especially at the time that my order was shipping out, because I was kind of right on the wave of the trend. Anyway, but the buttons did arrive and I sewed them on. So this has been fully complete for maybe a week and a half now. I've already worn it twice. When I first tried it on, I was worried about the size. I thought it was too small. Not in the sense that it didn't fit me, like it was too, like it was tight. It just felt smaller than I had maybe planned or anticipated it to be. But I think that's just like a thing that I'm just not used to wearing a more closely fitting garment, because most of my sweaters are pretty oversized, and that's just kind of the style that, you know, a lot of patterns have now. Like the recommended amount of ease in a lot of modern knitting patterns is quite a lot, and I intentionally knit this cardigan slightly smaller than the recommended ease because I just thought I want a kind of more classic fitting cardigan. And then of course when I put it on, I was like, wait, no, I don't like this. It didn't feel right on. I felt like I couldn't move freely or whatever, and it was also a little, like, just a touch short. But the thing about this yarn, this has a lot of alpaca in it, and also I think this is just maybe a characteristic of blown yarns in general, is that they stretch out. So after the first time I wore this, it had softened a little bit, and I think also just with body heat had just kind of like molded and stretched to my body a little bit more, and I liked the fit more. And also it was just a thing of just getting used to it. So the second time I wore it the other day, I was like, okay, this is fine. Like, this is a fine size. I like to wear my cardigans buttoned a lot of the time. I don't know why, just personal preference, especially in this kind of cold weather that we're having right now. And I think it looks really cute buttoned. I'm glad I chose these buttons that offer kind of a contrast. And they are pretty big, but you know, in the pattern, she like recommends button size, like this to this. I can't remember what the exact numbers are. And I think the only buttons I could really find that I liked were on the upper end of that range. So they are fairly large, but they fit through the buttonholes fine. And you know, I like the larger buttons. I think they're kind of fun. They add a little extra something. These are just, I think they're Drops brand buttons. They're this like olive wood. And I think they're quite pretty. I'm not really a button gal. I'm not really into like super cool buttons. I know a lot of people will like have kind of a button stash of like cool, unique buttons. That's just never been something that I've like, that my eye has been drawn towards. And also up until this point, I really have not made a ton of things that require buttons. This, I think, was the first cardigan I've made that closes with buttons. I've made this cardigan and then another one that have tie closures. So, and then I did make a vest earlier this fall that also has buttons. So yeah, it's just something I've recently been getting into. Buttons. New thing just dropped. But yeah, and also this was my first time doing these bigger buttonholes. The vest I made before were just little eyelet buttonholes. So those were super easy because it's just a yarn over. These are a little bit more complex, and she gives two ways to make these buttonholes. The first is the way that it's described in the written pattern. And then in the video pattern, she actually uses a different technique that leaves fewer ends to weave in. So even though for most of it, I was following the written pattern, when she said like, oh, in the video, I show a different technique that leaves fewer ends, I was like, well, let me just go to the video and just watch that part because I don't want to be weaving in more ends than I have to. And it worked out really nicely. They look super neat. The technique itself is really not difficult. Highly recommend if you are knitting something, whether it's this pattern or anything else that has buttonholes, to look up that. I think she has a separate video just explaining how to do this buttonhole technique. I'm not sure, but I would recommend looking it up because I think it's a good technique, and if you haven't done buttonholes before, you'll totally be able to do it. It's like, it's very straightforward. So yeah, this is my step-by-step cardigan. In terms of the pattern, I don't have any complaints. I mean, I think Handmade by Florence, a lot of her patterns are written for people who don't have a ton of experience following a pattern. So I found it very easy to follow as someone who does have more experience following a pattern. There wasn't any part of it that was like confusing or unclear or anything like that. So highly recommend if you're looking for a good, just basic cardigan pattern. It calls for an Aran weight. So it's quite versatile, I think, because you can use obviously one strand of Aran, or you can, there are sort of several combinations of like yarns you can hold together to meet an Aran weight. Yeah, okay, sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought. I'm happy with the final product. I think I'll get a lot of wear out of it. Again, great color for me, I think. And like I said with this, I love this yarn, super comfortable, warm, cozy, light, just lots of good things. Okay, my next finished object has been a long time coming. And it is my campanula tee. Let me hold this up for you so you can see her. As you can see, she's quite tiny because of the rib, but she stretches. I cast this off 10 minutes before I sat down to film. Like, I was rushing through finishing this because I wanted to include it as a finished object. I know I could have just included it as a whip and been like, oh, I'm almost done, but that's just not the same. I wanted to finish it, and it's finished. This has been on my needles since April. I know. And I took a pretty extended break from it because I was just not feeling it at the time, you know? And sometimes that just happens and you just need to take a little break. But I finally, kind of over Thanksgiving break, I got a ton of progress made on this. I made a ton of progress. I got a lot done on this project over Thanksgiving break because I was bringing it to my parents' house. They live like 10 minutes away from me for, you know, when I was hanging out with my family over break, and we would all just sit around and chat, and I would knit, and my mom and my sister knit too, so we would all kind of sit and knit and chat together, which was nice. This is knit in a yarn I bought in Peru. I think I talked about this in my last podcast because it was a whip at the time, but it's from the Peruvian brand Tejer es Cool. The yarn is called Vanessa, and the color is, I don't know, it's not on the packaging, but yeah, it's this beautiful blend of, I believe, 70% baby alpaca and 30% silk, and I think it was a great option for this, because this is obviously something that you wear right next to skin, so I wanted something comfortable and cozy, and I think this yarn fit the bill. Again, I think I talked about this in my whips last podcast, so I won't go into too much detail, but it's a saddle shoulder, a contiguous saddle shoulder, top down, irregular rib t-shirt, and it's knit on 2.5 millimeter needles with a gauge of 32 stitches by 40 rows. So it's a labor of love for sure, but honestly, I am so thrilled with the results. Like, I think if I had spent this much time knitting something and it had turned out badly, I don't know what I would have done with myself. Like, I would need to be sedated probably, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. It does have some short rows, which is nice, obviously, for a good fit. And then I think the saddle shoulders, the contiguous saddle shoulders, I never knit anything with this construction before, and I think for a tight fitting top like this, they just create a really good fit around the shoulders. Obviously, that's the kind of thing that's going to be different for everyone, but I think for my body, they just fit really well. In terms of modifications, oh gosh, kind of several. I mean, none of them were like crazy modifications. Most of them just had to do with the length. I skipped the extra rows after the yoke decreases, or no, increases, because you finish the increases for the yoke and then you knit a few more rows without increases just to add length. Am I remembering that correctly? No, you knit, okay, you do some increases, and there are several sets of increases in this pattern, which is why I'm getting confused. The final set of increases you do before separating for the sleeves, you alternate like a row of no increases and then a row of increases. And she says in the pattern that if you feel like that will make the yoke too long, you should just skip the rows where you don't increase and only do increase rows. So I only did increase rows on those. I skipped the extra length adding rows because I find that most patterns, the armholes are too big. And the armholes fit me perfectly, I think, because I did that. So I'm very glad I made that choice. I didn't try on the top or anything before doing that. I just kind of went based on how things usually fit me, and luckily it worked out. I don't know if I recommend that method of decision making, but you know, it worked for me. And then I guess the other modification I made was just to the length of the sleeves. I wanted a slightly shorter sleeve than what the pattern kind of indicates, because I wanted it to hit just below like my deltoid, because I think when tops hit there, it kind of enhances the existing muscle tone in my arms in a way that I find to be very flattering, because you know, I built these muscles. I want people to see them. I mean, obviously you can't see them now, but they're there. I'm in Pilates class, guys. So I wanted the sleeves to hit kind of in that place, whereas in the pattern, they they kind of naturally would hit a little bit further down my arm, like closer to my elbow, which I don't love on me. So this is described on my Ravelry project page if you want more details, but I just shortened basically the number of rows in between each decrease for the sleeves, because you do just a few decreases for the sleeve. And then I also shortened the amount of rows I knit before I even started the decreases. And I'm really happy with the length they turned out, so I'm glad I did that. I think everything else I knit according to pattern. For the bottom, I used Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off because I wanted it to be stretchy. This was my first time doing this bind off, and I don't know if I love how it looks, but when it's stretched out on my body, it doesn't look as messy. I feel like right now it looks a little messy and unkempt, but that's, fine. Honestly, I haven't decided yet, but I might go back and add the ruffle from the sleeves and the neck to the bottom. But I'm kind of undecided about that. So we'll see. But other than that, super happy with this. Can't believe it's off the needles. It's like a weight lifted off my back, to be honest. And I do kind of want to knit another one of these, but not for a while. Like, it would need to be a while before I cast that on. But I think one of these in like a cream, just like a classic cream, would be really beautiful and a super versatile piece to have in my wardrobe. So we'll see. I need to stretch my fingers out before I even think about that. Knit some stuff on bigger needles. Okay, so that's my campanula tee. I can't believe she's done. Obviously, Obviously, the ends are not woven in, and she isn't blocked. So, this is, again, just fresh off the needles, but I'm so thrilled. I just had to show you guys. I can't believe it's done. After all this time, I cannot believe it. Yeah, and I was scared I was gonna run out of yarn, but I actually have a fair amount left, like probably half a skein. So there should be enough to add the ruffle at the bottom if I want to. Okay, next up, whips. I really only have one to show you because my mosaic sweater, which I talked about in my last podcast, I haven't made any progress on it whatsoever. Sorry, I just haven't been in a color work mood. It is what it is. I do need to pick it back up because I want to wear it this winter. I think it will be so beautiful, and I mean, actually right now would be perfect weather to wear it because it's so freaking cold, and the mosaic is a super warm, thick sweater. But it is what it is anyway. Maybe we'll have some more cold days. But the one whip that I have actually made progress on is something that is a new cast on since my last podcast, and that is my moire sweater, which right now is just a vest. This is a pattern by Kiss Kiss Rhinestones, and it is just a classic set-in sleeve sweater. I've never knit a set-in sleeve before. I mean, obviously it's kind of the same construction as a drop shoulder, just the dimensions are different basically. But I found this pattern because I wanted just a basic sweater pattern to use some beautiful yarn that I bought at the Kentucky Sheep and Fiber Festival last spring. I went and got my unused cake of it because the one that's attached to my project right now, well, it's actually not even attached to my project, is kind of a mess. So I thought I'd show you guys this one. This is from Fiberology Dye Works, and the colorway is called, To the People Who Look at the Stars and Wish, and it is 72% Super Kid mohair, 28% silk. So lovely. This is actually, guys, one of the softest mohairs I've ever touched, and I did not expect that because 72% mohair is slightly higher mohair content than I'm used to. I'm used to like a 70%. So I was worried that it would have more of that scratchiness, but it's actually super, super soft and knit up as well. Super soft. I'm holding this with Knit Picks palette in the color white, because I wanted just kind of a nice little basic base for the beautiful variegated mohair. And yeah, I just think it's really beautiful. You can, unfortunately, I'm not very conscious of these things when I'm knitting with hand-dyed yarn. You can tell when I switch from knitting flat to knitting in the round, because the kind of effect that the yarn, that the variegation makes, like, it changes. I feel like it's more clear on the back. I don't really mind that though, to be honest with you. I don't think it's the kind of thing that someone would notice unless I pointed it out to them, unless they're like really a hand-dyed yarn connoisseur. But most of the people I interact with on a daily basis are not knitters. They're not the kind of people who would notice that kind of thing. So I don't mind. It doesn't really bother me. I think it's kind of a fun little quirk of a hand-dyed yarn. But yeah, this is just this beautiful kind of white base with flecks of all sorts of colors throughout it. Dark blue, green, there's like a lighter blue, there's some orange, there's some red, there's some yellow. So it's just kind of a whole rainbow. And I thought it would be really beautiful with a just white mohair or white merino or wool, because this is not merino, it's just regular Peruvian Highland wool. I thought that that would be really gorgeous with just a white base, and create maybe sort of an iridescent kind of quality. And yeah, I'm really liking how it's working up. I think it's gonna be a great little piece, a nice little cozy sweater to have in my wardrobe. In terms of the pattern, I haven't had any issues with it, other than issues that were my own fault. I had knit, I would say maybe a third of the right sleeve, when I realized that if I knit the recommended number of decreases at the recommended interval in the pattern, the sleeve would end up being way too long because my row gauge was off. And I normally don't pay much attention to row gauge because I figure if it's close enough, it doesn't matter and I can just knit to whatever length I would like. But when it comes to like sleeve decreases, that is a place where it does kind of matter. So I did the math and figured out the rate that I should decrease at with my row gauge to kind of accomplish like a similar look and a similar fit. And I just haven't started doing that yet because I just, when you frog something, when you have to frog something back, like it's kind of demoralizing, and I feel like I often need a break from a project after I do that. So I have had this on hold for a little bit. I finished my campanula tee, so I think now I'm gonna get back into knitting this. And also because like the campanula, I'm like, I finished that and then I'm like, well, it's not like weather appropriate for the weather right now anyway. Like I could wear it under something, I guess, but really it's like, it's extremely cold, as I've mentioned several times. So the campanula is definitely much more of a springtime piece, and I'm excited to wear it then, but you know, I just felt like I had to finish it regardless of the weather because it has been on the needle so long. But really the things that I like logically should be working on right now are sweaters. So I am gonna start working on this again soon. When I frogged the sleeve back, I was so silly, and I also ripped out all of the German short rows that you do at the beginning to like shape the sleeve cap, which was so ridiculous because like those were fine. So I don't know why I did that, because now I need to redo them, but whatever. I was not in my right mind because I was annoyed with myself, and I just, you know, I was over it. But yeah, in terms of the actual pattern, no complaints. In terms of the yarn, no complaints. The Knit Picks palette is just a great basic if you're looking for something to hold with like a special mohair that you have. I think it's a really good option for that. And yeah, that's it. That's all. That's my one whip at the moment. Because I finished my campanula and my mosaic sweater is languishing. So anyway, that's it in terms of whips. But now I get to talk to you about my acquisitions, of which there are several. First and foremost, my box of dropped snow. I just ordered, honestly, they didn't have a ton in stock when I ordered, so I just kind of like panic bought whatever colors I thought looked good. So I have 5 different colors in here. I have toffee, almond, these look very similar, but they are different. Grape, then light blue, and sage. So these are the colors I have, and I bought 200 grams of each color. So I still have 200 grams of the almond, the grape, of the almond and the grape, and then the other 3 I used for Alex's sailor slippers, so I have less of those. But yeah, that's just, I just have a box full of that yarn, and I think I'm gonna have a fun time kind of piecing together different color combos. And I also have some other like leftover scrap yarn that is like a bulky weight wool that I want to use up. So I think I'm gonna probably also incorporate that into some sailor slippers. So that's my first acquisition. And then my second acquisition, or set of acquisitions, was the order that I placed on Black Friday from Wool & Company. And I bought 2 sweater quantities. They were both sweater quantities of Cascade 220. And the first is burgundy, which is gorgeous. And I'm sad I'm losing the light because I feel like you guys can't see how beautiful this color is, but I love it. I think it is so, so pretty. I don't have anything really in this color, so I'm super excited. And I'm gonna use this to knit a Moby sweater. I know. And in fact, I made a swatch because I told myself I couldn't cast on the Moby yet until I'd finished my Murray sweater, and also probably I need to make some progress on the mosaic too before I cast this on, because I know this will consume like my every waking moment. But I did tell myself I could make a swatch, so I made a little swatch, and I did make some mistakes in the chart on this, but whatever, it's just a swatch. My gauge is too tight, and I'm gonna knit another swatch. I knit this on 4mm needles, which is what's recommended in the pattern. I'm gonna knit another swatch on 4.5mm. And this is post blocking also, because I knew that cables like this would, expand with blocking. I'm gonna knit another swatch on 4.5mm needles and see, number 1, if that gets closer to gauge, number 2, if I like the fabric, because I really like this fabric. So if I knit the swatch on bigger needles and I don't like the fabric as much, I will just use 4mm needles and knit a size bigger. And I did the math, I figured it out, I worked it out in my little head, and it'll be fine in terms of the fit. So we shall see, but this made me so excited to cast this sweater on. So I'm really having to hold myself back. But yeah, oh, so thrilling. And I need to get used to, obviously because I just finished my campanula, I'm itching to cast something new on, and I need to get used to not doing that, because I have stuff to work on, right? It's not like I don't have anything to work on. So I'm trying to contain myself and control myself, but it's hard. This, I'm getting a 24 stitch gauge, and the Moby has a 20 stitch gauge. So it's over a whole sweater that does add up. But again, I did the math, figured out what size I need to make if this is my gauge, and it will be fine. I just want to see if I can meet pattern gauge, what that fabric looks like, etc. Anyway, so acquisition number 1, Cascade 220 in burgundy. Love. So excited to have the sweater version of this. Okay, and then the next sweater quantity I got is also Cascade 220 in Ireland. Isn't this the most beautiful, perfect, like heathery green of all time? You probably cannot see it as well as I would like because of the abysmal lighting conditions at the moment, but love. And I got this to knit the waffle loop roll neck by Other Loops. I can't decide if I'm gonna actually make it a roll neck or if I'm just gonna do a crew neck. It remains to be seen, but I think it'll be gorgeous in this green. And the recommended yarn for that pattern is Isager tweed held with a mohair, and that is simply not in the budget for me right now. I'm gonna be so real with y'all. It's not gonna happen, but I think the kind of tweedy appearance of her sample is really beautiful. And so I thought a yarn with some heathering would help to kind of create a similar effect. And I think this is just such a gorgeous green, and it's another, like, I don't really have a good green sweater, which is crazy because I love green. But yeah, this is my second sweater quantity. Super excited. I don't have a swatch to show you or anything. I haven't even caked these up. But yeah, thrilling, extremely thrilling. Okay, and then one final little acquisition. This was part of my Wool & Company order, and this is just a single skein of Madeline Tosh Silk Cloud, because they were doing a deal where if you spent, I believe, more than $150, you got a free skein of Madeline Tosh yarn. So this was my free skein, and you got to choose like the base and the color and everything. So it was like a great deal, because I think this retails for like $35. It is very soft. This is the color Paper. I wanted just a very basic kind of creamy white to knit just a little lace shawlette. Is that a word? Shawlette? Like a little shawl just to wrap around my neck. I've seen like some pictures of people doing that on Pinterest and stuff, and I think it looks really beautiful. So I'm just gonna make a little, whatever it's called, something, a scarf, a shawl, I don't know, something, just to kind of tie around my neck. Yeah, so it'll be a free project basically because I got this yarn for free. And I think this will be enough for most of the patterns that I've kind of been eyeing. So very exciting, very thrilling. I think this will be just so lovely and soft to have around my neck. It's really, really soft. It's 40% silk, 60% mohair. So it is a higher quantity of silk. But yeah, have this. And then I also got from Wool & Company, I got a couple sets of DPNs for the Celeste mittens, which I'm planning on knitting also as one of my next projects. I just didn't have any DPNs in those sizes, and I hate magic loop. I hate magic loop. So when it comes to small circumference knitting, I'll do GPNs, I'll do 9-inch circulars. Even 9-inch circulars sometimes is pushing it for me. I find them very uncomfortable, so I was like, let me just do DPNs, especially because the Celeste mittens have color work, like the Celeste sweater does. So I thought that would be easier on DPNs. So we'll see. I might hate it. I've never done like a color work mitten, but I knit the Celeste sweater, so I'm just gonna use the leftover yarn from that to make a matching set of mittens, which I think will be adorable. Anyway, that is all I have, and we are just about out of sunlight. So it's a good thing I'm done because it's about to be fully dark outside. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Drop a comment and let me know what you were working on during this, or just any projects you've been working on that have been bringing you joy and love and excitement during this cold, frigid winter. Or if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, it's summer, and I hope you're having a lovely summer. I'm jealous. Anyway, I hope you all are having a great holiday season, seeing family and friends and just feeling surrounded by so much love and joy and warmth. And I'm sending you my best wishes for the season, whatever you may celebrate. I just hope that you have a wonderful time and get all of the gifts that you desire and eat your favorite foods and have the perfect cup of hot chocolate with so many marshmallows and just have a beautiful, beautiful holiday season. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe, or don't do any of those things if you don't feel like it. That's fine. But I feel like if you make it to the very end of the video, you probably liked it, so you should probably leave it a like. I mean, logically speaking. But you know, do what you want, I guess. I don't care. Doesn't make a difference to me. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll stop rambling. Yeah. See you soon.